Okay, we are back live. We had a small technical glitch there, but we're good. And today, welcome to Between the Pages Book Chat. And today's guest is A.L. Mengel, who is a horror author. And I'm going to and we're going to be discussing his book, Ballet of the Crypt Dancer, and his video blog series, Haunted. And I'm going to turn it over to him now because I'm rambling. And so introduce yourself, please.
Hello, everyone. I am A.L. Mengel, and I am a writer of supernatural thrillers and science fiction. And so I have written the Tales of Tartarus series, most recently Ballet of the Crypt Dancer. I'm also a video creator. I created the Haunted video series, the Era of video series, Unmasked video series, and I also created the Vega Chronicles science fiction series. So that is me in a nutshell, and you can Google me. I'll be right there, and I'll be saying hi. So thank you, AF, for having me on your show.
Okay, so tell us a little bit about Ballet of the Crypt Dancer. What's the book about?
Oh, well, Ballet the Crypt Dancer actually was birthed in 2017 from a dream that I had while I was coming off of my novel of that year called The Mortician. Now, The Mortician was a novel of mine which required a lot of research in subjects that people don't necessarily want to explore. And so I had to kind of decompress from that for a while. And during that time, I had a dream where we had this nefarious character who was shoving dancers and performers like ballerinas and things like that into crypts alive and closing the crypt with a big, huge thud. And that was the dream. So these are the type of dreams I sometimes have, guys. And that is where Ballet of the Crypt Dancer came to light. Now, in January of 2018, I started planning a tour with author Jeremy Croston, and we were getting ready to go tour our books. And my book was The Mortician because I just released. Now, in that time, I decided to start writing Ballet of the Crypt Dancer. I originally called it Ballet of the Crypt Danseur because danseur is, I guess, the French version of dancer, and it got confusing for readers and things like that, so I scrapped that. But anyway, in February of 2018, my aunt got very sick and passed away suddenly, and she was an avid reader of my science fiction, and I decided to put Ballet of the Crypt Dancer away for a while. And that two Colonia novels were 1,000-page science fiction epic fantasy story. And that took me about 2 years to get through that. So now, fast forward through that, Colonia releases in December of 2019. So now we're right before COVID, right before pandemic and everything like that. After that, in January of 2020, I was starting to get back into the whole performance and Ballet of the Crypt Dancer mode and everything like that, because I kind of knew that it was kind of something that was Phantom of the Opera, like stuff like that, those type of things that I used to watch when I was younger and everything. And I've always been a big passionate person about live performance and ballet. My sister was a ballerina. She was a point ballerina. And I dedicated the book to her. I wrote a poem, actually, at the start of Ballet of the Crypt Dancer that was all about being on point ballet as the curtain opens. And you don't see the audience because it's all dark, but you hear the timpani going. And then the performance begins. And so, Ballet of the Crypt Dancer links two of my worlds together. I've been writing about immortals for almost 10 years now. I am now also writing about witches. And the whole Ballet of the Crypt Dancer story is centered around a theater massacre, which links those two worlds together, the immortals and the witches, because the immortals are not vampires. They're different. They're immortals. They're different people, but they're linked through voodoo. And so that is what everything is brought together through Ballet of the Crypt Dancer, and the theater massacre is the pivotal point in the story.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned Phantom of the Opera, because when I was reading the blurb on the book, I did get that vibe from it.
Mm-hmm.
I also got a
Sure.
bit of an Interview with the Vampire vibe. I know you said they're not
Mm-hmm.
vampires, but I got
Sure.
that same sort of supernatural, old world feel to it. I think so.
Absolutely. Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's like, Anne Rice is one of my favorite authors. It's kind of funny because I actually had emailed Anne Rice back and forth over the years. Back in like maybe 2007, we went back and forth over email because back then I was looking for an agent. And what she told me, she said, well, I don't really know anymore about how you do this or anything like that, because she's been published with Knopf, and she got published back in like 1976 or something like that with Interview with the Vampire. And so she doesn't really
Okay.
know all of the intricacies of the business now. In terms of stories, somebody told me years ago, and it stuck with me, because when I was a much younger writer, I said, this is what I said. I told people, oh, I want to be the next Stephen King. I want to be the next Anne Rice. I want to be this. I want to be that, because that is my goal. And a very wise person in my life told me, he said, don't worry about being the next Anne Rice. Don't worry about being the next Stephen King. Be the first A.L. Mengel, because that is what the world needs. That's what they want. They want that new author. They want that new person to put out those books, another voice, somebody to carry the torch, the creative torch that keeps on burning. It's all like, I love seeing you in the Right Storm group and everything like that. It's just because Right Storm is all about, bringing that creative fire and igniting it within. We all have that fire. It's all there. And, it's just, I mean, discovering it and letting it burn and letting it go. And so that is what has been a big part of my own creative journey, of saying, you know what, I'm the first A.L. Mengel. This is what I'm bringing to the world. They'll like it. They won't. It doesn't matter at this time, because at one point that will be my legacy.
Mm. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the main character in Crypt, Ballet of the Crypt Dancer.
Yes.
What's he like?
Ramiel is the main character. He appeared in a couple of the books in the previous arc. So basically what happens is Ballet of the Crypt Dancer does two things in the Tales of Tartarus series. It starts a new arc with a new character on a journey of darkness to light, of redemption, which is what happened in the first four books, which ended with War Angel. And Ballet of the Crypt Dancer also is like an overall arc of the entire series. So a reader who starts with Ballet of the Crypt Dancer will get an overview of the first four books in that book, because that book overlaps the first four. And also, you have characters who are on journeys. The first character that I created was Antoine, and he was on a journey of redemption from darkness to light. It took him 4 books. Ramiel seems to be on a similar journey with different directions, because we have some different things, some things that might be more, different paths and, stuff like that. And I have, about another 3 books planned in this series. So Ramiel is, honestly, every character has a little bit of me in them. Every character does. And, it's kind of interesting because Ramiel was a man of the cloth who becomes a performer in Paris, but also an immortal. So he got transformed at some point. He got taken to this other side. He was an altar boy at the Sistine Chapel, and he was overhearing conversations as he was polishing pews of these different people. And he'd heard of this group called the Inspiriti. And like, who are they? And then things progress. And so they, go to a point where Ramiel finds his way to another character, Cristofano, who introduces him to the whole idea of the Inspiriti and immortality and what it brings and what it takes away. And then they go to Paris. And then they go to America. And so that is where it links to the first 4 books. And so there's several books in the first 4 that Ballet of the Crypt Dancer overlaps. And it's all connected.
Okay. So what's the hardest type of scene that you wrote in the book?
In Ballet of the Crypt Dancer?
Yeah.
Whew. Well, I would have to say the climactic scenes at the end of the book were tough to write because I wrote them shortly before the book went into print, because I was waiting and waiting and waiting, and I was outlining, and I was taking notes, and I was doing all sorts of other stuff with my writing of previous scenes and previous sections and everything like that. And I think that was probably the most challenging, because I was crashing the immortals and the witches and the voodoo and everything all together an act. Because Ballet of the Crypt Dancer is presented in 3 acts. Okay, Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. And the paperback is actually formatted to be look like a playbill. And so it's like everything is kind of, emulating a stage performance, which is what, the whole vision of this project was. And in Act 3, it's called the Convergence, because Act 1 is called the Immortals, Act 2 is called the Witches, and Act 3 is called the Convergence. And it brings them all together. And what I was doing was I was crashing 2 worlds together, and I wanted to, bring it to where I could find a resolution for the reader while also continuing the story, because I knew that this was not the end of the story. It's like, this is not the end of the story. This is going to be a point in the story where the book closes. And it's like, okay, so I've introduced I mean, Ballet the Crypt Dancer is the largest cast of characters that I've ever written about, because I have an entire cast of immortals that encompasses 5 books. And then I also have a cast of witches and also voodoo, everything like that, going to Port-au-Prince and, things like that, that link everything together, that I have so much stuff that I am researching and putting together, and my books take a long time to write. That's all I can say.
Yeah, they're very epic. It sounds like.
That's all. Well, they say, I have a hard time, I guess, getting to the point. I suppose.
Anyway, so what was your favorite scene that you wrote in Ballet of the Crypt Dancer?
Oh, the theater massacre. Honestly, it was what started the story. It's like I don't want to sound like crazy
Oh
or
no, no,
anything
that's
like
okay. We like massacres on this show, so you'll fit right in.
that. Sorry for coughing. I bought a new car a couple of months ago, and I named her. She's a black sports sedan, and I named her the Phantom Dominique. And it was actually named after a character who appears throughout the Theater Massacre, who is one of my favorite characters from the story, if not the favorite character from the story, because I was enamored with the whole theater aspect of the story. And I said, you know what? It's like, okay, I don't know much about them because they're only exist in a certain amount of scenes in the overall story, and everything like that. But it's so, you know what? It's just like, they're fascinating. Madame Arsenault. I mean, she was the the stage, manager who told all told all the dancers how to go to their different movements and everything like that. And she was one of my favorite characters of the story. I don't know, she just had this presence on the stage, just taking command over the company. And as the curtain is closed and the audience comes in and the orchestra begins, she Madame Arsenault would be behind the curtain saying, clapping her hands together, saying, all right, let's go, let's go, it's time to do this. And it's like, she was very forceful. Some of those characters in like one segment of the book, but they left a big impact on me as the writer, because they were a big part of the story, and where the story pivots, because the Theater Massacre is where everything pivots in the entire series of the Tales of Tartarus, from the Immortals to how everything else relates.
Sounds interesting. So, let's talk a little bit about your blog series.
Sure,
How
absolutely.
how did that come about?
Well, that was actually just something I, I probably, honestly, it was something that, if you rewind a couple of years, back in 2019, I did a series called hashtag the era of. It was on Facebook, on my Facebook page, and also my YouTube channel. And it was a very personal depiction of what goes on in our lives when we're creating something. When we're writing a novel or we're doing a work of art or something like that, life continues and a lot can happen. A lot can happen in that period. And so that was the era of, and I did that all throughout 2019, also into 2020. And I told myself at the end of 2020, finishing up with writing Ballet the Crypt Dancer, was being sent to the publisher and everything like that. It's like, you know what? It's like, I think I just want to take a break from writing for a while. I've written so much. And it's like, I think I just want to do something in video, because I I worked at a TV studio, and I also worked, I did a lot of stuff throughout high school and college where I learned editing and scoring and, everything like that. And so it's like, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I think probably it was JD who inspired me to do something more with video, because he started doing his March of the Writers stuff in March of 2021. And when I saw that, I was like, oh, I jumped on it, because I was like, oh my God, this is awesome. Let me do this. I'm having a blast with this. And so I did that for like a month. And then, I put all those videos out there and everything. I was in touch with JD because, I think March of the Writers is awesome, and I think we should see it every year. And then I started thinking about, well, I still want to do something in video. I was like, well, what do I want to do next? And I got this inspiration. I'm not really even honestly sure where it came from. I'll be 100% honest. I'm not sure. It came out of the blue. And I said, there is a haunted street in downtown Orlando. I said, what if I were to blog about that and edit it and score it and do everything just like I did with the March of the Writers videos? And that's where it came from. And so I was like, all right, well, let me do it. And let me call it #haunted. And so I had loftier goals. I'll be honest with you. When I signed up for this show back in like June or May or whatever, I thought I was going to have 10 episodes. I only have 4, but that's okay, because I have bigger plans for it now. And Haunted is a blog. It's not a show. It is pretty much, it's a dream that I've had since I was a kid. Okay, I've always wanted to write a book and travel the country and tell ghost stories. I love it. Sitting around the campfire, you tell the ghost stories and everybody gets scared and, everything like that. And so that is like my ultimate, it's like, oh my God, I love this. I want to go all around the country and just do it all around the country in all these different areas and connect with all these different people. So I decided, well, I'll do it over video. I can do it over video and stuff like that. And so I edit it, I score it, and I put it out there. And I've got a nice amount of views on my Facebook page. It's just kind of getting started on my YouTube channel, because my YouTube channel is not really something that I promote or anything like that. I just kind of put it all over there. So it's like, it's there, and I hope it, if it takes off, great, and everything like that. And but my Facebook page is kind of like my main base of operations other than my website. So but yeah, that's where it comes from. And Haunted is kind of interesting because I've covered some interesting topics already, and some people who come is like, oh man, I see something there. It's like, well, maybe, who knows? It's a blog though, it's not a show.
Yeah, but yeah, it's interesting because I've come from Nova Scotia, and you pretty much can't go anywhere in these problems without hitting a ghost story or haunted something.
Sure.
And it was interesting because, especially since you did the Titanic exhibit, which I thought was
Yes.
fun, because we have the actual Titanic cemetery here in Halifax.
Sure.
Which is haunted.
I would love to go there. Honestly, like that would be an awesome episode.
Yeah, and the Five Fishermen restaurant in Halifax is also reportedly haunted, and it at one time served as the morgue for the Titanic, the bodies that they recovered from the Titanic disaster, as well as a few other things over the years.
Sure.
There was quite a few dead people in that building, let's put it that way.
Just a bit.
Yeah, because it was a funeral home at one point and a couple other things as well. But yeah, so that's pretty much the most haunted building, I think, in Halifax is the Five Fishermen restaurant. And it's pretty famous in the area. But yeah, and there's a lot of other ghost stories in Nova Scotia. So it'd be interesting to see what Florida holds for first.
Well, there's been a few. And I know I actually have been out and about, and from people who have actually said like, oh my God, I love your haunted series. and have you gone to St. Augustine? It's like, well, no, that's something that I'm planning on doing, but I'm actually going to be going to New Orleans in a couple of weeks. So, that's going to be like an overwhelming experience. I've been there numerous times, but New Orleans is like the haunted city and everything. But what really probably inspired me for this particular series, this blog series, was a dinner that I had in December 2019 in Medford, New Jersey, at an old restaurant called Braddock's Tavern that has been in operation since the 1700s. And I was there for my mother's birthday, and the owner came. It's a very like high-end restaurant, but it's very like colonial, old-style building and everything. The owner came over to our table and started talking to me, and they said, oh, they knew I was an author and everything like that. And so, the owner started sitting with us for a little while and stuff like that when they found out what type of books I write and everything. And he said, oh, well, we have all these ghosts that haunt us on the top floor of the restaurant. And so I was like, oh, this is really interesting. And so as I was thinking to myself, the gears were going in my mind. I was like, oh, one day I have to come back here and I have to video about it, because I was literally in December 2019, I was just coming off of the era of series, the video series that I did back then, where I was doing like, more personal stuff. And it's like, oh, that would be really cool to, either write about it or video blog about it or something like that. And I didn't really know at the time what that inspiration was, but I sat on it. I sat on it for a couple of years. And then this is probably something that has blossomed from it. And so I have a lot of plans for Haunted, because I've been fascinated my entire life. So,
Okay, so I think we'll wrap it up here.
Sure.
So tell
Absolutely.
everyone where they can find you and your books.
You can pretty much find me anywhere. If you take A.L. Mengel and you type it into Google or Bing or something like that, all my stuff will pop up. I'm on Facebook, I'm on Twitter, I'm on Instagram, all under A.L. Mengel. I'm under Goodreads under A.L. Mengel. And I don't know if there's anything else, but if there is, I probably am there, because stuff is all over the place. So, but yeah, it's been a pleasure, Anita. It's been a pleasure. It's been awesome. This has been a great show. Thank you.
Yeah, it has been a lovely chat, and thank you for coming.
My
And I
pleasure.
have linked his Amazon page and his YouTube channel in the description if you want to check it out. And that's it for today's show. And we'll be back next weekend with another author. So join us then. And bye for now.